And now it's time for the latest exciting episode of Doz's Television Workshop.
Hello and welcome back to Doz's Television Workshop, where today we're carrying on with the resurrection of our Fideilty HF10 record player. Just a quick recap on what we did last time. Recap indeed, because we've changed the capacitors. I think I probably upset some of you for not restuffing that can, and in fact I did measure the can for ESR and capacitance after the video, and the 2HT sections were actually really quite good. Unfortunately, the cathode decoupling capacitor was almost open circuit, so yeah, it didn't get restuffed. We've mounted other stuff on the bottom. We swapped out the metal rectifier for a silicon rectifier, and I did see a wonderful quote about metal rectifiers, and it was an American quote, and it said, how to test a metal Westinghouse rectifier: remove from chassis, hover it over a metal bin, drop it into the bin. If it goes clank, it's faulty, leave it there. So I'm glad we swapped that out. It did, however, give us rise to another problem. With the HT was too high. We got a maximum anode voltage on our valves of 200, and I'd put 100 or so ohms in there, 120 ohms I think, 100 ohms, can't remember, and it did drop the HT down to about 130, and it just, I ran the amplifier like that and it just started to cherry up the anodes, so we're too hot. So I've made this dropper section up here, you see that on camera, put a tag strip in, made a dropper section up. That is, believe it or not, about 1,000 ohms, in fact just over 1,000 ohms, 1,200 ohms. And it does throw out a bit of heat, but we're within dissipation limits of those resistors, and our HT is now happy at 190 volts. I've run the amplifier again for a while, and yeah, it doesn't plate the anodes up anymore, so I'm happy with that. We did unfortunately have a casualty. One of our ECL82 valves, if you can see that, the top has gone milky rather than that nice dark colour. And if you actually watch carefully the last video, I think I dropped a screwdriver against it and it was fine at the time. Come back a week later and it's gone to air, look. So yeah, that no longer functions. Thankfully, I had a new old stock one. So yeah, we're all good. So that's where we stand with the amplifier chassis. It's looking good. I've run it for a few hours now, just with my old trusty MP3 player hanging on the input, and it works really well. So I would say really well, it's not hi-fi by any means. The size of the output transformers are tiny, but it does work, and it works as well as it's ever going to. So that we can pronounce fit. So yeah, that's that. Now, I did mention before that I'm going to change the cartridge, the pickup cartridge in the deck. There's a few reasons for doing that. One, the cartridge in there will almost certainly be faulty. Two, it tracks somewhere between 15 and 20 grams, I think, which is a lot. Yeah, it probably won't work because they're a crystal cartridge, and the crystals go sort of green and gooey. There are websites, I think, where you can sort of replace them with piezo transducers. But yeah, the output of that cartridge, when it was working, it's a big signal. There's probably getting on for a volt of audio coming out of that cartridge, and that's what our amplifier is expecting. Now I'm going to make the move, a bold move, to a moving magnet cartridge, which we can get easily and quite inexpensively, but that's only going to produce a few tens of millivolts of output, and it also gives us another problem, and that other problem is, whether it happened by accident or whatever, I don't know, but the crystal cartridge actually closely tracks the RIAA frequency response curve that's used when we press our record. So this amplifier has almost no tone RIAA correction in it at all. It's essentially flat, other than the tone control and its limitations. But yeah, it has no RAAA compensation, and we need sort of 750, maybe a volt of input in there. So we're going to need a preamplifier. And to that end, I have designed, quite a while ago I designed this, I've used it successfully in other places as well, this little moving magnet preamplifier. I shall hold that up to the camera. Can we get in focus? Yes, we can. As you can see, it's a tiny little thing, all surface mount, and yeah, works really well. So we're going to use that to take our cartridge signal in, amplify it, and then feed it into our existing amplifier. Now these perform quite well actually. Let's have a little look at the schematic. Okay, so if I just open KiCad, let's go to full screen. There we are. Right, you can see this is our preamplifier here. We have each channel is repeated. Let's start with the power supply. There's a bit of decoupling in here. This resistor R17 was originally used to make a filter there, but it actually limits the performance of the amplifier quite a lot. So I've put that in as a 0 ohm now. You can experiment if it becomes noisy. And here it is. I'll just zoom in on one channel because we don't need to look at them both because they are identical. Now, some of you may recognize this as extremely extremely similar to the very simple phono stage, which is reproduced widely on the internet, except for I've modified it so it runs on a single rail power supply. Ignore this bit that says 12 volts. It's happy on sort of 5 and up really. So you can run it on a variety of power supplies. Here's our channel coming in. This loads our cartridge up, R3 there, 47K. Audio passes through here, and then it's biased at half our rail by these 200K resistors. Feeds into our NE5532 op amp. Output some 47 ohms just to have an effect on if we've got any capacitance out here we're not dealing with, and 100K just to load it down. Now, the trick happens in this feedback loop, and this sets our RAAA response. So as you can see, we've got a lot of 1 nank caps, and we've got some resistance there. Why has that got a question mark against it anyway? And then we're set at a half rail point by this here. So that's it. If I now come out of full screen, he said, trying to come out of full screen. Thank you. Yeah, there's our board layout. And you can see it's fully populated on one side, and actually there's nothing on the other side. It was originally, I mean, it's that long ago, it was originally a project on my blog, but I don't think I ever finished it. And yet I've used this several times and it works great now. That's the resistor with a no ohm link. You can put a solder blob in there. I will make these Gerbers available, probably on my Git. So yeah, if you want to have a go at making one of these, don't be afraid of surface mount. Once you get your eye in, it's quite easy. Even with my shakes, believe it or not, I've just passed a class 3 soldering course. So yeah, I actually find it slightly easier to work with than through hole. It just sort of goes together easier. You haven't got to bend all the legs and snip them off. And of course you can make something that is, you know, tiny. Right, let's look at how we're going to power it and get it into our record player. Right, first thing to do is let's get the amplifier chassis back in the case. Looks good. Right, so that's the amp chassis back in. Now we need to mount our little board up. Now I'm not going to do that straight away because we need to create a power supply for it. Now, because it's only a single rail supply, that makes our life a little bit easier. And the reason I made it like that was so if you know how your heater winding is derived on the record player, you can rectify a little bit of it, smooth it out, and use that to drive your amplifier PCB. You do need to think about it. If you've got a mains powered valve string, you probably don't want to do that. The other thing you can do is, because this only consumes 4 milliamps, something like that, 5 milliamps maybe, not very much, you can actually power it from the cathode voltage on your valve. If you think back to the KB television set that we did a few months ago, that tuner had its power supply derived from that cathode voltage, and there's no reason why you can't do that for that. You do have to watch which way your earth is, though. Your ground here needs to be ground where the amplifier is, otherwise it's just going to create an awful lot of hum and not work. Now, because I don't have a schematic of that amplifier that we're working on, I'm not going to do that. I could work it out, but time is of the essence. So I have got a tiny little mains transformer. Let's hold that up to the camera, and of course, Workshop Banana for scale. It is, let me give you the part number. It's a block transformer, block.trafo.de, and it's 0808. So actually I could do a balanced supply from this, but my board's not balanced, so we don't have to bother. And each one of those windings is 0.175 VA. I'm going to put both of them in parallel anyway, and it's got a 230 volt primary. So that's ideal for here in the UK. It is a VB 0.35/2/8 if you want to order such a thing up. So yeah, what we're going to need to do is I think I'm going to fuse the record player as a whole. We're going to put a fuse in the mains lead somewhere because it ain't got one and we're relying on the fuse in the plug. Not ideal. So I'm just going to take the mains out, which we've already got on these two wires heading off to the turntable motor. So we'll just splice those off, go into our main side, secure this somewhere down there, bridge rectifier, and bit of smoothing, and that should work really well. So that is ideal. Right, I'm just going to wire that up now. Let's get on with that. So that's our two 8-volt secondaries in parallel now to give us a little more current. Here's our bridge rectifier. This side's the positive that I'm gripping. We've got the two ACs going in and the negative side on that. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to bend those legs out. I'm actually going to cut the AC ones a little bit shorter. This rectifier has been used before. It's one for the junk bin. Looks like the sort of thing I'd usually change a Lin turntable rectifier for. So as long as I know where my positive is, I'm happy. And we can just tack that on the left or rightmost pins because they're in parallel. Now let's think about this for 2 minutes. So there's my rough DC output. Let's take those legs right up like that. I want to keep out of the way of this mains side of things because, yeah, mains, if you don't know what you're doing, leave it well alone, folks. I have got a rough idea, so I'm carrying on. But yeah, you don't want to be getting your DC side close to the AC, really. Keep it as far apart as possible because, yeah, Why wouldn't you? Important to get our capacitor round the right way, otherwise that's going to end in tears. I don't know how tolerant these transformers are to overload. If you do get something go short, I'd imagine the transformer would expire in pretty short-term abuse. I doubt it's short circuit proof at all. I could be wrong, but it's a very small little item, so let's not abuse it too much. In fact, let's not abuse it. This reminds me of some of those YouTube videos you get where people just build circuits in hanging in free air. It's a bit like that. Not as arty though. That was easy, wasn't it? Right, let's actually see if it works, shall we? Hook my meter up to its output. There you go. I shall zoom out in a second so you can see that. There you go. I need to apply some mains into the primary of the transformer. I should connect that into my unsafe block and then power it up via the variac and the isolation transformer just for safety. Right, variac's on next to nothing. Switch on and let's see how many volts we end up with. That's 100. There's 200. How have we got 20 volts? Wow, that is too many. I wonder what our ripple is. Almost nothing. That's lovely. But that is way over the top. That is over and above what my input capacitor to the amplifier is rated to on the power supply. So let's just check I haven't put these two windings in series. It may just be because it's off load. Okay, it's just because it's off load. I'm going to actually have to connect the preamplifier up and see what happens. Let's do that. Just going to solder a DuPont connector on there because I've got pins on the preamp. It'll just allow me to connect it easily. Right, my mains is off. Hook that on there. Where did I put the preamp board? Okay, so that one is marked on the board as positive. This one marked at negative. Again, my multimeter across the power supply. Let's power up again and see where we get to. So that's 8 volts. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I got a 16 volt capacitor in there and I'm 180 volts, so yeah. Okay. I think the way to solve that is put a burden resistor in there. Right. Bear with me 1 second while I go and make a swift calculation. So we can see that in there. I've just tacked a 680 ohm quarter watt resistor across the output of our power supply. I've got the meter connected up again, so let's turn the voltage up, and I'm aiming for about 10-11 volts off, you know, when it's loaded down like this. So wow, there you go, 12 point, yeah, about 12 volts on load, so that's perfect. Right, so we have this scenario. I just got to mount that resistor in there properly, and then add the mains lead in, and I'm going to insulate that, probably with some hot melt. Then we'll fit that into the amplifier chassis. Let's do that. There it is, complete. Let's find some suitable mains type lead to put on the primary side. There it is. That will do. So, get away with the stringy bits. And yeah, I'll wait for that to cool off, and then we'll get it back in the case. Back in the case. It's never been in the case. It will go to the case for the first time. Right, the sound should be better in this scene because I've plugged the microphone in. I have mounted the little transformer power supply down here into the bottom of the case, so that's good. I have given it a nice long length of twisted output lead for our DC supply to the preamp. And it's long because I don't yet know where I'm going to go and mount the preamp. I shall come back to that in a minute. And here's our mains. Now I'm going to couple the mains in with the mains for the motor, connect that all together, probably with a couple of Wago connectors, I think. We do need to connect this speaker back up, so I'm just going to do that. So this is our input lead that goes to our amplifier. So that's got to connect to the preamp, which is here. Right, I want to mount the preamp as close to the sort of wiring from the arm as I can, because the arm wiring is always this sort of stuff and it's unshielded. So to try and keep the pickup down as little as possible, we need to mount that as close as we can get it. So I'm thinking I might just hot melt it to the bottom of the deck, and then I can come out on some screened lead, or even use this screened lead if it's long enough. It should be, to connect to there, and yeah, we're away. Right, so I think it's time to get the deck back in. Look at mounting our new cartridge. The choice of cartridge, which is quite important, because the geometry of the deck is nothing like it should be. So we have to make some choices there. So I've got a good idea where I'm going. I've just got to remember where I put the cartridge. Right, let's get the deck in here. Right, we've got our deck back on the bench. Now we need to deal with the cartridge. So let's sort of organise things a bit, because I believe under here the wiring is fairly grotty. No camera can see that. Yes, you can, just up there. Look, let's try and zoom that one in a bit. And nothing wants to happen really. I wonder what's going on with that. Okay. What have we got above us? I could turn it around, couldn't I? I'll turn it around. That's what we'll do. There we go. So you can see that. This wiring has been soldered onto the cartridge. It's the original crystal cartridge, unlikely to be of much use. I may replace the wiring. It may be all right, although looking at it, probably not. We'll maybe bell it out, or maybe just replace it anyway. Yeah. Either which way, that cartridge is not staying on there anymore. Now, previously when I did this, I did a UA14 a while back on the website blog, andydoz.blogspot.com, and I put a Shure SC35C on there. Now, that was a Shure broadcast cartridge, and I do still have some. I managed to get a lot of them from Contact in radio that was chucking them out when they upgraded to something else. So there we have it. Unfortunately, I've got no styluses. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, that cartridge was still available. It wasn't too expensive. And then at the peak of the vinyl comeback, Shaw decided to pull out. Obviously it wasn't making them any money. So a friend of mine, Simon, has sent me the venerable Audio-Technica VM95E. It's not venerable, is it? It replaced the 8095, which was a perfectly serviceable and inexpensive phono cartridge. And along with it, he sent me the VMN95C stylus, which is the blue one. And that has a big conical on it. We can track it at around 4 grams, it says in the instructions. Don't think we're going to get that low, but we can track fairly heavy and we might get away with it. So I have my new cartridge. I have my brand new stylus. Don't be tempted to fit that until you've finished fitting the cartridge, for goodness sake, because you'll end up breaking it. Ask me how I know. I've also been rooting around in my cartridge parts box and I found this 3D printed. Now this was 3D printed by a friend of mine before I was able to 3D print things, and I'm hoping it's the right one that sits up under here and allows us to mount, because the new cartridge, take it out of the bag, how many years of my life have I wasted getting things out of bags? Come on. Oh, I choose violence any second now. No, there we go. We're in. Obviously, the new cartridge has 2 mounting holes, which is popular from the 60s on, really. And this has 1. You see there's 1 screw hole in the top there. So we need to adapt that, and I sort of came up with this idea a while ago to make that happen. I've got a sneaking suspicion this part is wrong and my 3D printer's broken at the moment, but we'll have a look in a moment. That may be a bit of a prototype. We're going to want a screwdriver. Anyway, this cartridge, by the way, you see it's got a flip over 78 and 45, well, LP cartridge. So you could actually flip the whole cartridge over. Are we on camera anywhere useful? No. But the whole thing rotates. And it was sort of like 2 cartridges in one, really. One had a chunky stylus on it for playing 78s, and the LP one was a microgroove stylus. So yeah, we're going to undo this screw and just drop this cartridge out and its carrier. That's the screw. We're going to hold on to that. Now, some bodging person has soldered the wires to this cartridge, which is not the done thing. I can tell you now, this cartridge will be faulty. Do you know what? I'm just going to cut this off because that wiring is horrible. And it's only 3 conductors. Is it 3 all the way down? No, there are 4. Oh, the 4th one is stuck up in the arm. Belong to an engineer, you know. Right. Yeah, you can see how much longer the remaining one is. That can all go. I think we'll be changing the wiring. There's the old cartridge. You can see how it operates. Look, if you imagine I'm the arm, so I'm upside down here, but the whole thing rotated around. Quite neat, really. You can also see this is green and horrible with verdigris around the pins on the end. Can you see that on the top camera? Probably with better resolution. Which means that crystal has started to degrade in there, and it's got nasty and horrible, and it will no longer function. They do just pull out, so you've got the separate rotating part and the cartridge separately. This weighs, it's, you know, it's some alloy of some description, and it's going. So there you have it. Now, I think, if memory serves, the way this worked, it's been a while since I've done this, that fits up in there, screws down, and we screw our cartridge to it. I want to make sure we can just get the stylus as forward as possible in the arm assembly, and no, we can't. It's not going to be in the right position, or even approximately, however BSR managed to think about designing this thing in being anywhere near right. because I'll tell you now it isn't. But yeah, the actual shape's right, but the slots are wrong. So we need to consider remaking this. Right. Yeah. So I wonder actually if I can just drill 2 holes in it. Or I wonder if I just fix my 3D printer and make another one. Let's just see if it's going to mount up in there or not by doing this. The answer is not a hope. Right. This calls for 3D printing. Right, I'm happy to report that after some not inconsiderable grief with a 3D printer involving this broken hot end, 3D printing has finally occurred. Okay, so finally I have my 3D printed adapter. I've made the files available. There will be a link in the description. I printed more than one because, you know, and I've already mounted it on top of our new cartridge there. So now the moment of truth is to see if it'll mount in whence the old one came. It is far too far forward, but that's okay because it's made to be adjusted. I think we're going to have to go back a fair amount here. Like I said before, previous experience has told me that we need to get this as forward in the arm as possible. Otherwise, well, it doesn't sound very good. It's never going to knock the spots off a hi-fi anyway, but let's get it as good as we can. Okay, let's see if that's going to clear the front. Not quite. A shade more is required. Perfect. Okay, so where did I put the screw that mounts the cartridge into the arm? Here it is. This is our one sort of single screw. Pop that in. Just give these screws one final tweak. Pop that in as best we can. Yeah, okay, it's going to take a few goes at getting this right. Currently we're pulling too far to the left by the look of it. Right, after some messing around, the cartridge is looking pretty much aligned. I'm just going to squeeze that side up a bit if I can. That's looking good. So yeah, there we have it. Now this is not a scientific process. We can't put any sort of tracking gauge on the turntable because the geometry is just non-existent. You can't put I don't know, one of those alignment gauges on. It just doesn't work. You have to do the best with what you got. Right, next thing is this horrible wiring. It's going to get replaced. So let's tackle that next. I'm just going to put that over there temporarily, and let's just see what we've got. Right, the wiring is actually coming out under the turntable, under the bit with the plinth that I can't get at. It's up under here. So I'm going to have to drop the plinth out, and we do that by releasing these spring clips, which you can't see. Let me just ease the camera up a shade. There we go. It's this thing here. So you sort of get your screwdriver underneath it, pull the one tang up, and it should just release and then push out. I'll just get you so you can see that. Push up. Oh, it's savage. Where's my bigger screwdriver? So that should now pop off. There. And there's one. There's another over here. This would actually be easier if these screws were in a bit, wouldn't it? There we go. I should put those to one side. So we can get the whole turntable out of the expertly covered plinth. Built to a price. Right. So now we can get to our terrible wiring, and we shall just be replacing this. So let's just ease this little tag here, which is just holding the wiring in. That's that out. Desolder it from the tag strip. Excellent. Right, so I'm just going to switch back to the arm for a moment. And see if the best way to put the new wires through is to pull it with the old wire, which I think it probably will be. There's a little sort of grippy tube thing at this end, which I may well reinstate. Right, let's have some new wires. I might not have enough here, but we can sort that. Certainly got enough to get through underneath. Right, I'm just taking note of where these tubes are. There's one there, and there's sort of one there. So I'm just going to cut that bit of excess blue off here to get rid of that rubber. I'm just we're just going to do that again. Epic. I'm just going to slide that tube up. Excellent. And if we pull these wires down through here, should take all the others with it. There we go. I'm just going to slide that second tube up. Keeps the wires at the back of the arm. I think our first tube sort of lives up behind there. Just holds the wiring in place. See if we can get that to seep back in. There's a gob of ancient glue in there before the cartridge wiring was obviously butchered the last time. Yeah, works nicely. Should have enough wire. Right, I'm just going to look up the cartridge wiring for our new cartridge. See what colours go where. So I want the two at the top first. Oh, they're marked anyway. That's white is up there, which is left hand positive. I just need to be around this side a bit where you can't see again. Pull that camera up so you can have a little look. Oh no, that's too far. There you go. Underneath white we have got blue. Blue, top, other side we have got red of course, and then green. There we go. Right, come back round this side. Oops. And just pull that through a little bit. We want a bit more blue, a bit more of all of them really. And there we go, that's just about right. Here's our other bit of tube that secures the wiring in place. Excellent. Now, I'm a little bit concerned we're not going to have enough wire, but we shall just tug it through and we shall see what happens. Oh, I think I've got plenty. Yep. I think that's going to mean our tag strip is going to be somewhere up under there, which might be behind the perfect. Got plenty there. Going to tag the arm back down again temporarily. I think, yeah, we're not going to reach that piece of tag strip, are we? Well, we shall come up with some other cunning plan. I've already sold all these anyway, so let's get those separated. Excellent. Right, I'm now going to put the turntable back in its plinth. And we'll see what we can sort of come up with to mount this wiring. Right, so that's some wiring in. I'm just going to pull these screws back out. Where did that big screwdriver go? Over there. Just to tighten the deck back to the platter. And there's our wiring. So I do need to get that onto a tag strip. Thankfully there is a screw there with that tag in. So I'm thinking if I take that down off, get a new tag strip, or even recycle that old one. I can't see why not. We'd be in a fairly good position. Here's the old tag strip. You'll notice one of the conductors was tied to the chassis ground of the unit. Cool. There she goes. So I'm wondering if that's where our mains earth was once desoldered from. It may have been done to cure a hum problem, but we shall find out in a little while now. So there's my tag going in. We need to make sure it does clear the side of the wooden bits when the suspension is active, which it will do. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so refer back to our colour scheme again, because it's one of those things I can never remember. I'm actually going to solder these, I think, to the bottom sections of the tags, and then I'm going to come out the top here with some screened lead off to the preamp itself. So, oh, is that lever going to move that way? Let me just check. I'm not going to lever myself into any unfortunate situations. That's the arm, base of the arm. No, it always goes that way. That's as far back as it ever wants to go. That's fine. That's good. Always check for clearance before we make a horrible mess of life. Very much as advertised. I'm very pleased with that. That's good stuff. Just for the sake of something, I am going to just screw that tag back in there. Super! Right, now the next thing I think to do is to perhaps think about putting the preamp here and short bits of screened cable to that. Okay, now done with that for now. I'm going to need some screened cable. I shall be back straight away. So I've procured myself some audiophile grade extra virgin oxygen free copper triple silver plated cable. Oh no, it isn't. It's some Pro Power stuff, cheap from CPC. But there we go. Ooh. It is actually oxygen free. There you go. Right, I'm just going to tin the ends up. I have stripped them in readiness. Just tin the grounds up there. tin the centre conductors up there, and we shall apply them in the relevant places. So our left is going to go on there. I'm going to tuck those out of the way. Can you actually see what I'm doing? Probably not. I'm doing my best today. The camera work is not ideal. Camera positions are a little awkward. Right, that's that on there. That one on there. And that one is our green lead. Our red negative to there. And our red to red, which is our right hand positive line. I hate referring to AC as positive and negative. It's not really, is it? Okay, there we go. Now I'm thinking the preamp should sort of live on there somehow. It's got a flat bottom to it, so I could just attach it there, couldn't I, with a bit of hot glue again. I think that's the order of the day. Right, that has glued that in place. So that is fabulous. I should put the glue gun there. Hopefully it won't dribble all over the carpet. I say carpet. I think it's got that much solder on it, it actually conducts. Right, we're going to want to trim that about there. Now, it is left, ground and right on these 3 pins down here. Although I don't actually know what she's left and right on the amplifier. It's just stereo. I suppose you just moved the external speaker if you got it around the wrong way, if you even bothered doing that. Ground on first because it's the fattest conductor and it'll provide the most mechanical strength. Of course, I've instantly blobbed over to the right. Let's do that again. There we go. So we have new arm wiring. We have the preamp connected. Motor wire stuck. That's suboptimal. So we've got to get some DC into there and put the audio output lead on there, and we're ready to try it out. I expect hum. We may have to twiddle a bit with our grounding, but yeah, we're getting there. Let's go and get the cabinet back in, refit this and see how we get on. Right, okay, I've got the case back in. I've just taken the liberty of reconnecting the external speaker. We need to join up these mains leads. So we've got these 2 which go off to the motor and these 2 which go off to our little power supply for our preamp. So I'm just going to prune them down a bit. Give them a little strippage. Let's twist these up, and I think I'm going to use some Wago connectors because let's face it, they're absolutely stunning. Rated for mains. Many more amps than this will ever draw, one hopes. Okay, so I've got that and the motor to connect. We're going to need a couple of 3-way Wagos. Wago? Let me know in the comments. Right, I suspect that depends on which bit of the world you're in. So yeah, this is going off to our motor. That is, oh yeah, of course, green is live. And that one will connect to the turntable in a minute. A couple of our neutrals, just confirm, yet black is indeed neutral. One thing I didn't do earlier was explain how we got so many volts out of that tiny little transformer. And it's because those transformers, very, very fine wire in them, the slightest load causes them to sag. And they're not very well regulated. I don't know what the percentage is, but that's why we put that burden resistor on there, to give it a burden, something to do, so that voltage actually falls round to where we need it. As long as you're within the rating of the transformer, all will be well. Now that is going to connect to our preamplifier. That is going to connect to our preamplifier. So, yeah, I need to know how long those are. So let's get the turntable involved, which is sort of here. How am I going to do this so you can see what on earth I'm doing? We may have to move some cameras again, because I'm going to want to be like that, really, and you're not going to be able to see a dang thing. Right, I'm going to take those two screws out before there's a disaster. I'm just going to lower it in temporarily. Oh, come on. That's never it. You've got to put it round the other way, haven't you? It's got to go in that side first. Okay, come on. Come. There we go. God, you need about 4 pairs of hands to put these together. There we are. Right. Yeah. One other thing I haven't done is just check that clears our dropper resistor, which is a sort of baffle here. I think I'm just going to bend those round. There is enough clearance, I think, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, so I'm just going to tilt those round slightly. There we go. Right, okay, I'll remove that other screw. We're going to need a Phillips screwdriver. This one will do. Oh, it's stuck. Come on out. You know you want it. There we go. Right, so I need to take it out that way and bring it round this way, and then somehow conjure up some magic camera business so you can see what I'm doing. Right, pop back in a moment. Right, so you can now see sort of what I'm doing. First things first, I reckon, is just to connect the mains motor up on the turntable. There we go. Right, now we've got to get this lot connected up to here. You'll notice I have marked that one as red. Whether that quite makes any difference, I don't know. So we'll call that the right channel then, shall we? So I need to solder that onto there. It might be a bit unpleasant with that ground. See what we can do. It can make my life a little easier by just bending that pin over. Don't snap off. Please don't snap off. Please don't snap off. Didn't snap off. Bargain. Right, let's get some fresh solder on those pins. Can you see what I'm doing? Wherever I put a camera with this job is just going to be impossible. That's on there. Hurrah! And then we've got our DC coming up. Just got to go on those 2 pins there. So just try and keep it all a bit separate. Make that a bit shorter. before. And we shall shrink that down with the hot air gun. I believe we are all set for a bit of a smoke test. I've still got to fit that fuse into the mains lead. I should do that somehow, probably in the bottom. But yeah, I'm certainly ready for a smoke test. So yes, what will happen? We are about to find out. So let me, I've got to spin that up the other way to get it back in, haven't I? It's got to go up there and then down there. And we're going to see what happens with the mains earthing as well. Because, you know, this chassis should really go back to mains. It's got a mains motor on it. Provision has been made by the manufacturers for mains earth, and nobody sort of bothered with it. Why isn't that sitting flat? Because I think it's slightly warped. Alright, we are in a bit of a go situation. Cartridge is fitted, amplifiers are done. Let's switch it on. Now, what we need here, of course, is the workshop test record, which is the dulcet tones at the very lovely Sydney Divine. There you go. Right, there you go, Sydney. Enjoy your travels in minutes for you. Plug it in and give it the beans. Right. Right, well, we're on. No smoke so far. Lots of hum. Not unexpected. Oh, we're going to need to adjust the turntable up a bit. And the set down position.
I hate to think it's all over. I've lost my happy feelings. I've grown so used to you.
It is, however, working. But we've got to deal with that awful, awful hum. Okay. We may need a mains earth. It does actually sound a bit like we might not have enough smoothing on our 12 volt rail, which could be possible. We may need to look at that. So far we've been unsuccessful. I do want to have a look at this mains earth anyway. So we're just going to snick a bit off that and see if that helps us out any. We'll just connect that up before we go mad with the power. Right, wait for it to warm up again. I suspect this is going to make almost no difference whatsoever. No difference whatsoever. Okay, so that does sound a bit like insufficient smoothing on my little power supply. So I'm just going to get a cap and tack that in across there. Now this is 1500 microfarads. We know our voltage is below 16. This is a 16 volt rated part. But we know our voltage is below that, so we're well in the realms of being safe. The other problem is using a Bowden resistor like we have, a burden resistor like we have. It can make the humming situation a lot worse. So can you see that's our power supply right down in here. I will just tack 1500 microfarads across it. Yay, we have success. Right, powering back up. And let's listen for any hum. Right, it is substantially reduced, which is meaning that it is coming from that power supply. So I bet if I put another 1500 mic on it, it'll really stop it. but that means that power supply, we're going to have to take it out and slightly re-engineer it. Right. Right, I've actually got it working quite nicely now. Didn't take long at all. I'm actually just going to draw what I've done for you here. So this is our mains transformer here. And that of course is feeding our bridge rectifier. We'll call that one our minus and this one our plus, if that's all right by you. Now originally of course we placed a 330 microfarad capacitor there, and then we had our 680 ohm resistor. Now that's where our problem is. There's just simply not enough filtration. So we've made, and then we stuck a 1500 microfarad capacitor up, and things got better, and that was my clue. Now I'm still using the 1500 mic capacitor, but I've put 150 ohms in here, and then our 1500 microfarad capacitor that side, and that solved our problem. And what we've done is we've made basically a CRC filter here, which has just solved our problem. It is a slight hum left, but most of it's coming from the valve amplifier. So I've just got to tidy that up now, refit it. I am going to earth the turntable back to mains earth, so it will be electrically safe, and button it up. Think it's done nearly. Let's get on with it. Right, I have reassembled the player, and I'm happy to say it works perfectly. I thought I was going to have to make some minor adjustments to the deck, but it's all right. I will just show you how to set the tracking weight. Oh, one other thing to note. Off camera, I have fitted an inline mains fuse, and actually some of the thick sort of self-tapping screws that were holding the transformers, the output transformers in, I managed to get one of those not PCB mount, but panel mount fuse holders, and it just screwed straight in. Absolutely made for the job. So that's good, because it's important not to burn me dad's house down. Right, tracking weight. That's why I'm wearing a different shirt. Because I know my daughter, the continuity department, will be moaning. It's because unfortunately the batteries ran out in my tracking force scales, and I had to order a new battery. So we've done that. Now I'm just going to set this up not properly, because I've left the stylus cover on, which obviously weighs. So this will read slightly more than we're tracking at. Now that cartridge said it needed a maximum of 4 grams. So how you set the tracking weight on a BSR, it is a spring driven thing. So I'm just going to lift that arm up there, and I'm just going to show you with this camera, which I'm going to swing in, where the weight adjustment is. And it's on this plate here, and this spring, when it's at this end nearest the pivot point, it's heaviest, and when it's at this end it's lightest. And I'm able to achieve with the cover off about 4.2 grams, something like that, with it in that hole. So it's pretty much perfect, really. I mean, the geometry is all over the place. By the way, if you need to adjust the set down point, that's this screw here. So when, you'll see in a minute, when it goes to play the record, depending on whether that arm's been depressed as a record falls down, you'll see. So if I just set the scales up for a second, you'll notice I've put the suspension out of the way, by the way, because, you know, I've got a tremor. So this is with the cover on, which isn't going to give us the most accurate reading in the land. It's about there, and I've got my hand in the way. It's way over the top. What's going on there? Might just be because we've got the cover on. So let me just try and line that up a bit. 4.65 grams. I don't know if you can see that. Let's turn that out for a second. 4.6 grams. I'm happy with that, really. So you didn't realise that little cover weighed so much. But there we go. Right. Now, there's only one thing left to do. And that's show you it working, I suppose. Sadly, you won't be able to hear it working. The quality is of its time. And the singles I've got aren't very good either. But they're, yeah, some stuff from the 60s that somebody gave me. So that's wonderful. So I'm just going to put those on there. We have got, on the Tamla Motown label, the Supremes and Stop in the Name of Love. Great. And Wheels on Fire by Judy Driscoll. So, yeah, there we go. Let's stack these. This is a record changer, so you can stack them. Look. And we'll just put the amplifier on. I'm just going to push this camera around the way so you can see what's going on. Let's just wait for the valves to heat for a moment. There we go. A little bit of hum coming through, but it's not too bad. And here we go. Drops the first record down, moves in, and plays. And now, of course, you lose the sound. Sorry. So many memories are just coming back. It really is wonderful. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Click like, subscribe, buy me a coffee, share the videos, do whatever you want. I hope you lot have had a great Christmas. I can't wait to see my dad's face when I give him this. Yeah, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you very soon here on Doz's Television Workshop. Cheers now. Bye. Wow.